How y'all doing today? It's Tombstone Girl. I'm trying something new. I wrote down some stuff, but I basically want to tell the story between 2022 and 2025 that basically where this album surrounds the time frame from and the experiences and things that I went through during that time that influenced my songs, the album, the artwork, the direction. I would say the start of it comes from basically me moving back from New York during 2022, and I moved in with my mother. Me and my brother actually moved in with my mother at the time, and everything was good. We were working a restaurant job at the time, and I worked there for maybe, I think I would say 4 to 6 months, and then I got fired. And through this time period, I was basically going through psychosis from drug use, just, being unhappy, going through injuries, going through a lot of things that was affecting my life personally and professionally. And, you know, I didn't really focus on a lot of music during the time of 2022 to, I would even say, 2023. I didn't really focus on really much music at all. I ended up taking these courses and classes for being a CNA, and it was good. I did that for 2 years. I did that up until the beginning of 2025, and I started that around 2023, and it was a nice job. I made consistent money. It was a great experience. It put me in a better financial situation. And throughout that time, I was also going through a lot of disagreements with friends and family too. I found myself feeling very lonely, even though I was around people. But it came to my awareness that a lot of the people that I hung around weren't on the same page as me, or didn't respect my vision, or didn't see eye to eye with me. And it took me some time to, dissociate from those people, and, you know, our friendship just basically dwindling, or, not working out. And it definitely affected me emotionally a lot. Me and my brother were going through a lot of times too. We just weren't seeing eye to eye, and it got to the point where, we had a few problems leading up to the point where, I wanted him to leave the house, basically, needed some time apart, some space apart. And, it was very hard to do that because I didn't want to, but I felt like it would be better for us to grow apart a little bit, because I felt like us being together was definitely not working, and it was very toxic at the time. And adding my mother into the mix also didn't help anything, because my mother can very much project a lot of her emotions and how she feels about life and what's going on onto other people. And it just was not a great environment. So, it was really a point in my life where I needed space from everyone, not just family. I mean, not just friends or, my brother specifically, but family in general, even my mother. And I would take trips to Airbnbs and make beats and stuff. And this started around 2024. I started taking Airbnbs, and, I had just bought a car a few months prior. So, I was able to drive to different places and go to South Carolina and stay in Airbnbs out there. And about a few months in, I would say around July or August of 2024, I came up with the idea of wanting to create an album. And it took some time. I'm not gonna hold you. It took some time. I started reaching out to, people. I started getting on dating apps, not really to date, but to find friends and, you know, get out there, find, new people to hang around and stuff. I was really by myself, and I had worked on myself. I made a lot of videos during that time period of just me and myself and trying to clear my head and find peace and acknowledgement and, find awareness in my situation and understand why I was in the predicament that I was in. And throughout the time, I was kind of unemployed. So I had worked my second job as a CNA, and I got fired. And for like a good 5 to 6 months, I was working just doing Uber and Lyft. And finally, I got a new job as a CNA in Asheville, North Carolina. And it was nice. It was great up until the point of a breach of contract with my agency. They gave me a contract that they were going to give me a stipend to pay for my Airbnbs and stuff, and they did not follow that, which put me in a bad position because I ended up becoming more in debt because of it, because I was the one paying for the Airbnbs, and I eventually couldn't pay for the Airbnbs. And, I went through this whole like legal thing. And they had a lawyer and stuff. And, with these corporations, you can't really, it's hard to beat these people. Even though I had a contract, I didn't have money at the time to even pay for a lawyer. And so I basically just dismissed it and basically just like moved on. And it made me realize that jobs don't really care. Like you can have a job, that doesn't mean you have job security or you have financial security with that. And I chose to bet on myself. I ended up meeting this beautiful girl. She ended up helping me, and I met her when I had just started working in Asheville, and we were talking and stuff. And I would come over her house and make music and chill and things like that. And I told her like I wanted to be an artist and I wanted to focus on that. And she gave me the opportunity to stay at her apartment because she was also doing agency work, so she was barely home. So it gave me the great opportunity to stay at her place while she was gone and work on my music and kind of be in my own world and in my own environment. And I finally was kind of moving out of my mother's house because my mother was kind of toxic and wasn't really helping my situation. And so I was able to kind of move out of that situation into another one that was a little bit more healthier for me. And throughout the time period from the end of 2023 to the beginning of 2024, I was staying at this apartment. I was working out. I was still working in Asheville. I was still doing Uber and Lyft and stuff like that, and kind of getting my life on track. And I started really focusing on my album towards the beginning of 2024. And started really working on beats, really being surgical, really figuring out what I wanted to hear, what sound I wanted, sonically and things like that. And towards the end of January, I got fired from my Asheville job. Just wasn't working out for me. I was very exhausted traveling back and forth and knowing that it was costing me a lot more money to go out there 2 hours away from home. And, as far as time too, like if I wanted to drive back and forth to work every day, that just wasn't going to be a good situation. So I ended up getting fired because, I was late a few times, and I also was caught sleeping on a job. I fell asleep one night, and that basically led up to me getting fired and let go. Um, so after that, I said, fuck it. I'm going to focus on my music career. And I had time to focus on my music career. By that time, uh, my friend who is now my partner, because we were friends for a good while before we started dating. Um, but at the time, my friend, she had got a new place. And she was still going to pay rent for the other place, because she didn't want to break her lease. So I stayed there for another 3-4 months before the lease was up, and was able to record my music and, actually build this album that I was building. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of patience, to write out, and reconstruct the beats and things like that, and my production and the direction I was going into. And finally, the lease was up. My friend offered me to move in with her, and I would say either shortly before or shortly after we had started dating. And we started living together. And through that process, I was still working on music, still recording, still